The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.
Welcome to How to Money with Cole and Cole.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Cole.
We coach people every day on their money and how to plan for the future.
As financial advisors, we're here to have an honest conversation on investing, retirement, and everything in between.
At Full Swing Financial Planning, we're here to empower you to take control of your plan, your way, for your financial future.
So let's talk money.
And sports.
Welcome back to How to Money with Cole and Cole, but I'm only here with Cole Jaski.
What's up?
We're always a little unhinged when Cole P's gone.
I know, it gets a little rowdy. You get our two brains going in a million different directions. This can like Peter's over there laughing. Like
too much ADHD in one room.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Well, when this comes out, March Madness will just be wrapping up. You know, who'd you pick? We didn't do selections for the podcast.
No, I was traveling like when a lot of the brackets came out, so I just kind of missed it. You know, we didn't do a pool or anything fun, but been watching, unfortunately, the Hawks, the female Hawks bowed out, got their butts whooped.
Kicked.
Cyclones got their butts kicked. Drake's out. Everyone's, it's like all the Iowa teams got kiboshed this year.
Yeah, and then Juju got hurt.
Yep.
Big time player for the women's game, but yeah. You know what? If you picked it right, comment that. Comment on our little post here. Let us know.
Yeah. Let us know how you're doing.
Yeah. Let's dive right into it. We got a lot. We're busy today. We're going to get right into it. All right, Cole, we hear this a lot. We manage 401ks. We also have this with a lot of clients. I mean, I still have people that keep their money in a 401k. Why? What should you do when you leave a job? When you have money in a 401k, but you are no longer employed with that company, should you leave it there? What should I do? Yeah,
and we're gonna take a really big dive on this today. We're just going to go into mainly all the positives of why you would want to move that 401k. But really, when we were coming up with the agenda for this, we thought, this is the most common account that for our listeners or anyone in any area that they're going to have is going to be their 401k. Generally, that's where most people start, their investment accounts or their retirement accounts.
It's their first investment experience, yep. I think.
Yeah. So back to your question. So, everyone, anytime you leave a job or you have a 401k, or even sometimes when you actually are still employed with that job, you do have some options. But anytime we do this, I would say it's probably the most common money movement function that we help people with. And I always go, you can leave it there, you can roll it out, or you can cash it out. Those are your three basic options. Now there's variations of those three, but we're going to go into deeper dive all three of those. But really depends. But
what should I do?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What should you do, Beileigh?
Well, I'm going to cash it out, go buy a new. No, if you know me, I'm not.
Cash it out, pay the taxes.
Pay all the taxes, even maybe pay penalties. That's what I'm going to do.
So let's break down. Yeah. Not you. You're the last person that'd be doing that, I'm sure. So let's break down the most common one, which I think is the most common one, would be rolling it over to an IRA. And what an IRA is an individual retirement account. Most people know what that is, but some people don't.
I think some people have a really hard time differentiating 401k, IRA.
Yep.
So maybe give a little blip on that.
One's on a group platform. So what I mean by a group platform is it's sponsored by an employer. So to have a 401k, there's got to be a sponsoring employer that built the plan or started the plan, and then you're employed by that business, or it's your own business and you have the 401k. IRA is anyone can open an IRA. Yep. It's an individual retirement account.
So I personally have a 401k and an IRA. So if I left an employer, how do I decide? Do I roll it into my 401k or do I roll it into my IRA, or do I need to create an IRA? I think that's where people just have a hard time understanding what to do with old 401k funds. Do I leave it or do I roll it, and where do I roll it?
First thing I always, want to consider for anyone that's like, hey, what should I do with it? Let's observe your new plan, right? So where did you transition? Generally, there's some type of transition phase that's happening if you're considering moving or rolling over your 401k, right? You either left a job, you retired, something happened, whatever it might be. First thing you need to do is, okay, what is maybe that new employment offer for a 401k, and go through that platform and say, hey, does it make more sense? Or maybe I want to manage myself, or I want to have Beileigh manage it. And that's where we might look at saying, hey, we're going to go to a traditional IRA and we'll open up that universe.
Maybe tell listeners too, because there's more options in IRA, right? There's more flexibility, beneficiary investments. Maybe explain to listeners, why would you go with the IRA route versus putting it into that 401k? And it depends on the amount you have in there, and if you're going to stay at your new job, and if you want to consolidate and be more organized. But there is a power to having old 401k money in an IRA.
I will, do the air quotes. I would say there's different scenarios where it makes more sense for the IRA, especially if you're retiring, right? That's one I'm going to say, that bucket probably means you are going to a traditional IRA because you have way more control, can do things. But let's do an assumption that you're still employed, right? You're still active in the workforce. So you're like, hey, should I move it to my 401k or should I roll it to a traditional IRA? The benefit of doing a traditional IRA, first and foremost, is customization. You just have access to really the whole investment universe when you do an IRA.
Any stock, any bond, if you want to put on money market, whatever suits your...
It's self-directed.
Yes.
So you get to decide where it's going. You want it to stay within an IRA platform so you don't pay any taxes or anything on it, but you really can get to that point of saying, I have full control, or I can hire someone to have full control and customize this IRA account. Versus if you go into your new 401k plan, there's going to be 15 to 20.
You're limited on what you could select.
Yep. Basic options, there's your target date funds, and it's all going to be, at this point, all mutual fund based. Versus IRA, you can do stocks, bonds, ETFs, a whole
mutual funds, whatever.
Yep.
You just have full control. You have the grocery store versus going into a little boutique. That's a good way to put it.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to always say, there are times where it does make sense to move it to your 401k. Maybe a smaller balance where you don't have access to, or you can't be as diversified. If you do an individual IRA account, you might not be able to do, get as much diversification as you need versus just moving it and being simple.
Consolidating
and consolidating it to that your new 401k account. Some other considerations would be why sometimes people can't move it to their new 401k. Sometimes the 401ks don't accept rollovers, or they're not eligible to participate in the plan. Sometimes there's waiting periods.
Like a year.
Yep, a year or whatever it might be. And you might say, well, I've got $200,000 in this 401k. I want to have more control on it. Those are those situations where, hey, it probably does make sense to either, investigate or educate yourself deeper on rolling over to a traditional IRA.
I just feel like it's very common though. And I come across this, especially with a lot of young people. They're like, oh, I have 2 old 401ks here. Or I've had this old 401k at this hospital I worked at 2 years ago, and I haven't looked at it in like 3 years. And I think that's the biggest thing, is always be on top of your own money. Is one, you don't want to forget about it. And that does happen. 401ks go inactive and then they end up transferring it to a smaller company it's harder to get access to. Or 2, you're just not aware of how it's invested and how it could be helping your future. And I think we live in a world where obviously job changes happen more frequently now than they did back in the day. So it's just being in control of your own money, I think, number one, like knowing where it's at and being full control of it, whether you put it in your new 401k or an IRA. That way you're educating yourself on how much money do I have, where's it invested, and where do I really want it to be invested at.
And I'll take it a step deeper of thinking, are you updating your beneficiary designations at all those places, right? If you have 3 or 4 401ks out there in an IRA and this and that, and you've changed jobs, most likely if you've changed jobs, you're still probably in your earlier, phases in life. You might have a family, or you might have started a family, which made you transition to a different job. Are you going through, so if something happens to you, those assets are going to transfer, efficiently to the appropriate people.
And I think people think, oh, I'll just leave it at that old 401k company. It'll just sit there to them. Sometimes the company might switch who's hosting their 401k, and then there's a blackout phase, and then you don't have access to it. You're just not in control of what's going to happen with those funds, and those are your funds to be in control of.
I'd say worst case scenario, if you have to default, roll it to your new plan. Because know you're going to be active in your new plan. You're going to have new money going in, and at least there's some eyeballs on it, or you at least when you signed up, you had to make a selection. So, and it should force you to do that. I would say we do come across a lot of people like, oh, I have like 6 retirement accounts scattered all over, and you're like, well, that's crazy, because think of anything's the power of numbers. It used to be, I would say 401ks were significantly cheaper than doing an IRA account. The compression in our industry on fees, I'm not going to say it's cheaper one way or the other, but there are times where we have saved people costs by rolling to an individual retirement account, and they have far more customization and they're paying less cost.
And they have ongoing financial advice where the 401k, you are the financial advice. And I was just going to say that there's a misconception. People are like, oh, I just leave in my 401k because I don't pay any fees, because they don't display the same. You really have to dig deeper into the 401k to see what expense ratios you're paying, what administrative fee you're paying. There is a fee.
Very, very rarely, we hear that a lot, that
Yes.
like people don't pay a fee. Very rarely are there no administrative fees in a 401k for the participants. Generally, it's equal to your percentage of the plan. So almost everyone, but there are times where employers do pay the full administrative cost, but every individual is subject to their own investment costs. Every mutual fund that's within a 401k has what's called an expense ratio. That's paid on the individual level. The plan sponsor cannot pay that for you. So anyone that says they're not paying any costs in a 401k,
They're like, I swear they told me I'm not paying anything.
Unless they're in all cash
Yes.
or like a cash account that has no fee. That'd be the only way. But if it's actually invested, there is a cost. Everyone is paying within that plan.
And I think, again, there's just more flexibility, right? Like we always want you to have the flexibility with your beneficiary, or maybe it's a good time. I helped a younger person not long ago. They had a 401k and it was a great time to convert it, right? They converted it. They moved it from a traditional 401k, converted it to a Roth IRA. I think as long as you're just having the conversation of where it should go and why, that's like the first step. But I think a lot of people leave their 401k because they really don't know how to roll it out.
Yep.
So if you have an old 401k, and you want to move it, let's say you don't want to work with an advisor, you have to call, let's say, for example, it's at Empower. You need to call the Empower participant line and you need to go through a phone call and you need to be like, hey, I need to directly roll this over to my 401k, and they will walk you by step.
And sometimes it can be very simple.
Yes.
When you leave an employer, a lot of times now as technology's advanced, you can do it right through the participant website.
Yes.
And it's all automated. You just have to click through the right buttons. Obviously, there are things that people will make mistakes on, and we want to make sure you're cautious, because if you make a mistake and you do a cash out and they send it to your bank account and you just cashed out an $80,000 401k and you're like, oh, I thought I did a rollover.
Yes.
And then you get a tax form next year when you go to your taxes and you owe 15% federal income tax plus a 10% penalty for an early distribution. And you're like, oh, that cost me $10,000.
Yes. Directly rollover is the key word. We want to direct, or you can take it out and you have 60 days to put it back. There's different scenarios, but again, if you're not comfortable doing it by yourself, or you're like, hey, I just don't want to call, I don't want to go through steps, I don't want to do the forms, it's a great time to meet with someone and be like, hey, I have an old 401k, what should I do with it?
And generally, your new employer, we're still using this assumption that it's someone leaving an employer going to another. If you're wanting help facilitating that, there should be an advisor or some type of helpline on the new plan. And we run some 401k plans, and I specifically have one staff member that
crushes it.
Always, that's what she does. She helps people facilitate their money from one plan to the other. Sometimes they end up rolling it to an IRA, but that's her job. She does 3-way calls with the old 401k company, and we get the money rolled over into the new plan or wherever the participants wanting to facilitate that movement of money. But we really do coordinate that, and most plans out there do offer or have some type of advisor or some type of
401k.
Support line to help you transition those funds over.
So what are some mistakes you see, Cole, when people are doing these rollovers?
So whenever I'm doing a rollover call, say it's a new client or even existing client, I always want to go through the different contribution types before we roll and confirm that before we roll that asset anywhere. Because within every 401k plan, or not every, but a lot, there's multiple options. There's pre-tax options, there's Roth options, or you can split your contribution into both. You might be doing 10%. You're like, I'm gonna do 5 in Roth, 5 in pre-tax. And then you might have a company match, plus maybe that company does profit sharing, right? So you could have 4 different, buckets within this 401k, and you really need to make sure that when you do your rollover paperwork, because it can be a little confusing, that money, if it's Roth money within the 401k, it's moved to a Roth IRA. If it's pre-tax money and you're not planning on doing a conversion or anything like that, it needs to go to a traditional IRA. And then sometimes people do see where on profit sharing, you might not get the full amount because you weren't fully vested or whatever it might be. But I've seen that mistake where someone they moved their whole pre-tax bucket to a Roth, and they didn't realize they had to pay the taxes. Yeah, and they didn't pay the penalty, but they have to claim all that money as taxable income.
I think that's a big question too we get with 401ks and IRAs. How should I do pre-tax or should I do Roth? What's your suggestion for anyone?
Yeah. I mean,
situational.
It's very situational based on your tax, your individual tax situation. But I do think it's more advantageous, the more money you can get into the Roth IRA bucket or the Roth 401k bucket, especially if you're young. It doesn't matter if you default and you're like, I'm already paying taxes. I'm used to it, whatever, everything I put in. If you default to Roth, you're not going to be disappointed long-term.
At some point, you're going to pay the taxes. And when you have that Roth bucket in retirement, it's not considered income. There's no RMD. When you want to take money out, it is tax-free but it's definitely situational. It's nice to have both buckets, but I feel like it's very common to people. I get that question all the time. Should I be doing Roth or should I be doing traditional? And should I be doing Roth conversions? And I think obviously everyone's capable of rolling the old 401k to a new 401k, but I think anytime you change jobs, your incomes probably change, your benefits have probably changed, your options of the 401k have changed. It's a great time to sit and get some sound financial advice and being like, hey, can you explain these new investment options? Hey, do you think I should roll this? Is it a time to convert it? There's so many little things that happen with a job change.
I would like to go deeper, like just to double click into that a little bit of saying, that's why it's great to, I think, when we're facilitating that conversation, if you are a client of ours, and I'm kind of throwing a plug for working with an advisor here.
Because we're great.
But it is one of those things that we are going to have that conversation of like, especially if we've seen your tax return and we're like, hey, we've got, $80,000 of pre-tax money that we're looking at moving. Maybe it does make sense to take $10,000 when we're doing that rollover and do a Roth conversion at that time. Like, hey, based on where you're at in tax brackets, we're not going to kick you up into another bracket. You are going to pay a little tax.
Maybe you're not making as much money. It's an even better time to do a Roth conversion.
So that's one thing that, if you don't understand what a Roth conversion and maybe the benefits are, working with an advisor can really point that out of saying, hey, here is the benefits of doing that long-term, or how much, tax value you're going to gain long-term. I know Bailey's just like loving this conversation because she's the Roth IRA queen.
I mean, I tell everyone every time, because we have quite a few 401ks and we help a lot of people roll in and out, and they ask, and I'll be honest, like if I think it's better to go into the 401k, I'm like, put it with the 401k. But if I think it's better to go in IRA, I'm like, let's put it here. But I am like, if you are young, you are going to pay taxes on the money either now or later. Which one do you think? Do you think taxes are going to be more in the future? And do you think you want more flexibility when you're older and retired? Like, I just love tax-free money in retirement.
I always use the Roth bucket as it's the what if, and it's the bigger liquidity bucket that you don't have to think later in life, like, oh gosh, if I take $80,000 out of my traditional IRA, for whatever it might be, I got to calculate how much in income tax on it versus, hey, I do that same thing in that Roth bucket. I don't even have to think about it. I just go and pull the money out and I spend it on whatever I want. No tax implications.
And I'm going to take another step further. Also, if I end my retirement and I have this Roth bucket versus traditional IRA and I end up not needing these funds, and let's say I'm 74 and I pass away and I give my money goes to kids. Luke's gone. The kids get the money. They have 10 years to withdraw that traditional IRA money. So if you have $1 million in traditional IRA and they have 10 years to take that money out, they're going to have tax consequences. Versus if my kids inherit a Roth bucket, they can hold on and ride that out.
It's a lot more advantageous to
legacy.
As part of the estate.
Yep.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.
Let's do a little dollars and cents.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Thanks, Cole P. Way to step in while you're gone.
Give us the point.
Okay. Cole J, what do you got? Dollars and cents.
All right. Since we're talking about, 401ks, what to do, rollovers, when you leave a job or you retire, I thought we'd find some little, some statistics on, and this one, the one I found is actually on millennials, which, do we fall in the millennial?
Yes, we're millennials.
We are. I never know all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know.
Gen Z's below us. What age does
I'm a 92
Gen Z?
model. That's all I say. So
89, feeling fine.
Yeah. But according to this survey, it's a Gallup research survey, 21% of millennials reported switching jobs within the last year.
Oh, wow. Last year.
Yeah, within the last year. So I don't know how big the survey was. I didn't go into super deep into that, but very reputable source here. And then 62% of the survey participants said they're open to new opportunities.
Oh, see.
So I find that,
I think we talked about this a little off. I think it's just I don't even think you need a stat to know this. People switch jobs way more than they did back in the days. Love the boomers. They were dedicated to their career. Work the same you hear that all the time, people retiring to work there 30, 40 years. It's just not as common.
More information's available.
Right.
Internet, there's more competition. There's people recruiting all the time. And that's why I find this very relevant to the topic is like most people, if you're listening to this episode and wanting to educate yourself of like, this is probably someone's listening like, hey, I've gone through this 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And I've had to do this.
Oh, maybe I have 3. I had a client come in the other day, younger guy. He had already switched jobs 4 times. He had 3 old 401ks, and one was really small. There was one, but he's like, I've just left him. I just keep taking the higher payer, better job, and he might switch again. But it's a reality, I feel like, in today's world. I think it's just very relevant to the conversation today because I do think this is going to, we had the great resignation during COVID. Everyone realized they could work remote and leave jobs. And I just think now people jump back in. People are going to keep changing jobs. People have 401ks. It's more common for companies to have 401ks. So,
and we're seeing a big shift, I would say, in
especially the Gen Z.
And even like think of like tech companies are kind of downsizing with AI. And now those jobs are just changing, right? Now there's going to be AI infrastructure jobs. And I think as things continue to evolve and change, people are going to just naturally be transitioning probably more than what they have in the past.
Yes. Let's go over some more options. I know we talked about leaving a job, but what are some withdrawal options when you are employed with your company? So I'm still employed. What are some options?
Yeah. So first, the most common one I would say, that we facilitate or help with people is what's called the in-service rollover. So what this is if you are still employed and you have reached the age of either 55 or some plans are 59 and a half, there's generally an age restriction within the plan, but it's a pre-retirement planning tool is what it was meant for. And what that says by means in service means you're going to do a rollover while you're still employed and still working at this employer. This plan allows you to roll it to a traditional IRA or another, investment vehicle, and then you can do some more customized planning generally in your pre-retirement years. Maybe you're ramping up where it's 3, 5, 10 years from retirement, and you want to get a little more customization before you do actually pull the trigger on retiring.
Because you have the only options you have in the 401k. And some people are chomping at the bit. Like they know at 55 or 59 and a half, I can roll this out and I can have my advisor manage it, or I can put in something with more options. But I get this question a lot. Well, but I'm still working and I want to keep contributing to my 401k. Just because you take those funds and you take full control of them, you still have access to the 401k. You still have your match. It's not like you can't contribute and get that.
So you just need to see if this option's available to you. It's generally be in your plan document or any type of plan correspondence as a withdrawal option, and it'll be called in-service, either rollover or distribution.
What are some other options people have? And just so you know, this is what I love about our team. We're very pro educating our clients. Yeah. And so the 401ks we did have, and this is why it's top of mind. We have a little 1-pager we send out to all the participants, and we have withdrawal here at 59 and a half eligible, or when you're all the details of the plan, and it's really simplified for the client.
Some plans can be quite restrictive.
Yes, and they're all different. That's where I was going with that.
They're all different based on the plan rules. What is common is basically the tax and penalty on how the money when it comes out of the plan. Mm-hmm. But another distribution option that's available in some plans is what's called, and this is probably the most common, is called a hardship distribution. And this is unfortunate when someone has to use this, but it a lot of times is available, and this is exactly what it sounds like.
Times are hard.
Yep, times are hard. There are certain criteria to be able to meet the hardship rules, but it's basically an actual distribution while you're still working from your plan to help you pay, for some type of, generally it's based around your mortgage, your primary mortgage, say you're behind or you're in foreclosure, or there's a serious medical condition that you can get approved. Yeah. And there's a couple others, but it does have to fall under the criteria. And generally the plan makes you fill out some appropriate documentation to prove that you're actually.
And I was going to say, make sure you are accurate that it is a hardship withdrawal.
And you do have to pay taxes on the money. So It's not like just because you're in hard times and say it's, it's all pre-tax money, you're going to pay your income tax plus your 10% penalty. If it's Roth or you're pulling from your Roth, your portion's going to be probably tax-free depending on the gains losses. If it's from gains, you could pay penalty or taxes on it, but then you're going to pay a 10% penalty on any dollars you take out of there.
We understand this sometimes needs to happen, but obviously this would be worst case scenario just because of the tax consequence to look at it for what you put in and what you're going to get out for your dollar. It's a really tough route to go with the taxable income and the 10%.
Let's use a simple example of $10,000 on 15% federal income tax bracket. Let's just assume we're 5% state. Iowa, it's less than that now, but we'll say 20%, right? So 20% is when you're just paying taxes plus the 10% penalty. So you take $10,000 out, you're going to net $7,000.
Yes.
It's going to cost you $3,000 just in taxes to do that.
Yes, that's a great example because I really want people to listen. Like that's your future bucket of money. And I'm not saying you'll have to because obviously there is a reason for the hardship withdrawal, but if you need to buy something new, or you know what I mean, and it can wait, or you can adjust some money somewhere else. That's again another reason to work with someone. I think that happens a lot too, where they're like, "Oh, I just loaned money or did a hardship withdrawal out of my 401k, and it probably wasn't the best decision, but I didn't talk to anyone about it." Which brings us to the next one.
And you want to make yourself sick on that. If you're considering one of these, take what you think you're going to pay in taxes, and if you're younger, take $3,000, go put it in an S&P 500 hypothetical calculator you can find online, and look what that 3,000 turns into in 20 years.
Yeah,
that's what
powerful.
That's what you're missing out by an instant gratification decision.
Need the money.
Right? For the delayed growth in there. Now, there are times like where we said where that's the last case scenario, or your back's against the wall, you have to. We understand that life happens to people.
What's the last withdrawal option most plans have?
And there might be some ones we're missing, but these are the most
Basic.
common. The last one is loans. So this is definitely of the, say, loans or hardship distributions. If you have the ability to take a loan, much more advantageous for you, but not all plans offer loans.
Nope.
I don't know what the stats are on there and what plans do. I would say
I feel like we have a mix of the ones.
We have about half and half. I think we manage 8 to 10 plans total. And about half of them have loans available, half don't. And really what a 401k loan, is you're borrowing against your account. So if you, there's an IRS limit, the max loan anyone can take in a 401k right now is $50,000. But you have to have at least, if you're going to take $50,000, you would have to have at least $100,000 in that account. So if you only have $20,000 in your account, it's generally half the balance. Yep. So $10,000 in that example, you could borrow $10,000. What's powerful about it is, one, you're not actually taking an early distribution from a taxation standpoint. So, and your money actually technically still stays invested. So you don't pay any taxes or a penalty on the money as long as you stay employed with that employer. But you do pay some interest on the money, but in some plans, the interest actually goes back to yourself. Mm-hmm. So it can be quite powerful, but I've seen this quite a bit where someone has a loan and then they leave employment. And then it all becomes taxable at that time. So then,
because you never know if you're employed, you never know when they might let you go either. It's just weighing your options.
You need to have a plan of how you're paying it back, and most plans require you to start payments right away. So if you're doing a $500 a month deferral, probably half of that's going to have to go to that 401k loan that you have, and you pay it back over whatever period of time you select when you set up the loan.
I've probably said this 4 or 5 times today, but I'm going to say it again. This is why, especially with your 401k, when making these decisions, or should I leave it? Where should I invest it? How much should I invest it? Should I consolidate with 401k? Should I take a loan? Don't make these decisions without sound advice, right? Because most people don't understand the ins and outs of their 401k. I plead with everyone to know and go educate yourself on what's actually available in your 401k, what it's actually invested in, what you can and cannot do. But we have plans very local here to us that we manage. We try to be very forward thinking and communicating with them. But some people work for bigger employers where the person managing the 401k is in a completely different state, which I'm just saying is make sure if you need to, take that time to sit down and call someone and be like, hey, I have an old 401k. What should I, or hey, this is my 401k. Should I loan money here? Or there's just so many ways to do this. And I think it's it is the most powerful tool for most people in retirement.
It's the most common, right? It's the most common bucket that I would say the majority of people have.
Yeah. And I also want to add this too, is a lot of people say, well, I didn't save for retirement because I didn't have a 401k. You know what I mean? I do think people think like, oh, I just don't have a 401k, or I don't have a match, so I didn't really save, or I just didn't save enough for retirement.
That's not a good excuse.
Yeah, right? Maybe just give someone a 10-second blurb of where else they can invest. If they're really looking like, hey, I want sound investment advice.
There's always rules to every situation, right? But if your primary employer does not offer a 401k, you can always contribute to an IRA, a traditional IRA account. Now, if you become if you become a very high income earner, sometimes there are caveats that where you can't. But Roth IRA, traditional IRA, those can happen at any point as long as you qualify from an income tax standpoint and you have the funds to be able to do it. But anyone can save in a non-qualified account.
Yes.
Non-qualified brokerage account, you can buy the same investments that you can buy in a 401k. There's just a little bit different tax implications long-term in them. But
just put the money away.
By default, if you're like, hey, I don't know if I qualify, everyone qualifies for a non-qualified account.
Yes.
Anyone, doesn't matter how much you make.
You qualify.
Doesn't matter how much you make. You can save. It's just like being able to invest in a savings account is all that is.
Just so people know, like if they're like discouraged, they're listening, it's like, dang, I don't have a 401k. That's kind of a bummer. I just want to plug that in. But a lot of our most popular episodes are these like, what to do in retirement, what not to do in retirement. So or what to do with an old 401k, I highly recommend people go back and listen to those, because these are the type of episodes that's like really thought provoking. Like, oh, I either do really need to work with someone, or like our producer, Peter, who was like, oh, I do have an old 401k. I need to, you know what I mean? It's everyone has old 401ks. Everyone has questions about what to do with their 401k. What to do in retirement. I just would like, go back and listen to those. So Cole, let's do a little quick rapid fire. Let's just wrap it up.
We're going to recap with a rapid fire. Love it.
Let's see how fast we can
We're going to do some, yeah, oh my gosh, we can roll through this. We're going to do some pros and cons on all the scenarios we went through today.
I'll be the question asker. You ready? Rolling into a new employer's 401k.
All right. The pros, simplicity, the continued tax deferred growth. The cons, limited investments, and maybe the fees are higher.
And maybe you don't have someone really awesome to work with.
Yeah,
like
that's
a cool
true.
Advisor at full swing. No, I'm just kidding. Rolling into a traditional IRA.
Pros, wider investment options, greater control in that, you get to work with Beileigh Ashbrook as your lead advisor.
And who doesn't like control?
Yeah, no, we love it in this room. Cons, tax implications, and again, could be some potential difference in fees or maybe higher fees.
Okay, rolling it into a Roth IRA.
Pros, tax-free growth. And withdrawals in retirement. The tax, we can't get enough of that tax-free growth. The cons, definitely can be some immediate tax implications depending on if you're doing conversions or whatever it might be.
I think that's important. I mean, we rattled these off fast, and I think when we talk, we're like Roth, pre-tax, in-service. Like we use these terms all the time, so maybe we forget that. It's like when Luke talks to me about plumbing, I'm like, I don't want
That's a good example.
He will be like, I had this pipe, and I'm like, I don't care because I don't understand.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and he's like detailed, and I'm like, I stopped listening 2 seconds in, babe. But no, seriously, your 401k is it's your money. Like, I think people don't realize it. Yes, it's through an employer. Yes, you have to have an employer that has a 401k to utilize it, or if you're self-employed, have one. But be in control of your money. Don't leave it behind. Don't be, I haven't looked at it in a few years and I just forgot about it, and now it's inactive, and now it's going to take me a 30-minute phone call versus just going online. Just know your options. I really if I could speak to anyone with an old 401k, know your options and be on top of it. What do you think, Cole?
I couldn't say it any better.
All right. Oh, don't forget, like, subscribe, comment how much more you like listening to me than Cole Jasky. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, if you have questions or if you've had this situation, comment. Like, yep, I have an old 401k, or here's what I did. Everyone needs a little extra help. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Jimmy V.
Go Cubs.
You've been listening to How to Money with Cole and Cole, the podcast of Full Swing Financial Planning. To learn more, visit their website at www.fullswingfinancial.com and follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn.
For now, I'm Cole.
I'm Beileigh.
And I'm Cole.
And we'll see you on the greens.
Security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.